In this section, we are going to look at the concept of events in Solidity. First, we'll look at why are events required in a program, and then we'll get into how to code events into the Solidity programming language. If you look at any of the programs that you work on, right, any of the applications that you use, when you go to the payment page, right, what happens is you have this application. Let's say this is your mobile application, and you'll have a button called as pay, right? Now, this payment can be through your credit card, debit card, PayPal, Stripe, any of these things, right? So what happens when you enter all of your details, credit card, debit card, and all of this, and click on pay, right? If you click on pay, it is going to take you to a new web page. It will probably be opened in a new tab, or in your mobile if you're doing it, it will take you to a different application altogether, right? So this program, mobile application, is going here, and in this place you will get your OTP, right? Or you might need to enter your password, right? Net banking ID password, and then click on OK and all of these things, right? Let's say this entire process of OTP verification, password, and all of that is taking about 15 seconds time, right? What will happen after 15 seconds? If it is a success, right, it is going to tell this program that it is a successful transaction. If it is a failure, it is going to tell this program that it is a failure transaction, right? Which means anything that happens in the other application is going to return a value and say, yes, you know what, this is what happened, correct? Also, if you look at, once you click on pay, it goes to the new application, right? If you go back and look at this application, what is happening in that, you will find a circle that is revolving like this. It keeps on revolving, which means it is waiting for the other application to give something. Okay, if this application does not give, is it a success or a failure, this will keep on rotating, waiting for the other program to give you something. Tell me something, what happened to the request I gave you, right? So this is the concept of how it works in the traditional system, right? Now imagine the same way there is a mobile application, okay, and there is this smart contract, right? So what the user is doing is to enter 15 ether, right? I want to send 15 ether and click on pay. Of course, as you know, in a dApp, we will have the smart contract as the backend, and the front end will be a website or your mobile application or any of these things, right? So it is a similar scenario where you enter 15 ether is what I want to transfer and click on pay. Once you click on pay, this page will start waiting for the smart contract to complete, right? So these details will be sent to the smart contract, and the smart contract will execute the function. This will turn into a transaction, right? This transaction will go to the miner has to do the mining process, and then the transaction gets into the blockchain, right? Usually the average time is about 15 seconds in Ethereum blockchain, right? Now this application has to wait till the smart contract completes this, and once it is completed, the transaction can either be a successful transaction or a failure transaction, right? So this application is still waiting for the smart contract to tell this whether it is successful or not, and what are the details and all of these things, right? So now if this gives a success, right, then this will show a successful, yes, your transaction has been completed, and these are the details of the transaction, that much, right? Or if it is a failure, this application has to show you, no, I did not go through, can you try once more, right? So these things happen as part of events. So these are called as callbacks that are set, callbacks in the regular programming languages. In the smart contract, we call these events, right? We call these as events. So some event happened in the smart contract. Some transaction happened in the smart contract. Some code was executed in the smart contract. If you want to let the user know if it is successful or not, or any other details, then you will emit an event, right? Events. That's the reason why events are an integral part of your entire smart contract code itself, right? Now events can be used for something else also, right? Now let's say there is an event for register user, right? Whenever a user registers into your decentralized application that you have built, something like Amazon you have built, let's say, and some user is coming up and signing up in your smart contract. So immediately the owner, which is you, right? You are the person who wrote this code. The owner might want to be notified about these things, right? So this owner will be able to subscribe to an event. When he subscribes to an event, what is going to happen is whenever some event happens, right? In this scenario, we saw only if I am doing the transaction, I will get the notification, right? After the successful transaction. But if someone subscribes to it, so this is the owner, let's say, okay, this is the owner, and there are two people who are registering. Today, one person registers, tomorrow, one person registers. Whoever registers, if this event is given back, let's say this is called as the register event, right? Register event. He will subscribe to this register event, and whenever an event happens, whenever a register event happens in the smart contract, the owner will get a notification, right? This is another usage of this events itself. Wait, it's not done. There is one more, right? These events, whatever you are creating, something called as register events you have created. And here what you are saying, this is the username, right? And this is the email of the registered user, right? You can do two things. Either you can choose to create a struct and store all this username and email inside the struct within your smart contract itself, right? Which will be costly because as we know, every byte of storage that we do in a smart contract takes 5 gas, correct? Now instead of that, you can ideally store it in events itself. What does that mean? That means that the blockchain, right, that the Ethereum blockchain is keeping a record of all the events that have been sent to the user. So every time it gives out an event, right, it also stores it inside the blockchain. This is called as the log data. Okay, log data. So the events are all there. So let's say till today about 1000 users have registered into your platform, into your smart contract. Whenever you go to this event log of register events event, right, you can find the username and email of all the 1000 people in your event log itself, right? So that is another advantage of using events. The first thing we saw was letting the user know if it is successful or failure. The second one is letting anyone who has registered this event know that it is a successful or a failure, right? Whenever a new user comes, the owner keeps a track of everything that happens in the app. The third one, it also acts as a low cost storage by logging all the events that have come out of this smart contract, a particular event, right? That way. So these three things. So okay, what is the difference between storing the username and email in a struct within the contract itself or taking it from a event log? Is that if you're taking it from a event log, you cannot use it inside the smart contract. You cannot read the event log data inside the smart contract. Okay, so here if you are storing it as an array, let's say all the users, if you want to know who is the third user, you'll be able to call this array and get the user details of that person, right? But this log can only be displayed in the front end. Only in the websites it will be able to display, but not within the smart contract. You cannot take the third user from the log and do something with that within the smart contract. So that is the disadvantage of events log, but most of the time it serves its purpose. It's a low cost storage. It notifies the user. That's the main aim of it, and it does that perfectly well. Now, going back to the contract, we'll see how events are declared and how events are emitted. Correct? So here, let's create something like register user itself, right? So here I'm gonna create, or register student will say, a new student will create, maybe, yeah. So let's create a student, right? Student public student or new student I'll call it, just for better readability. New student, correct? That's a struct I've created. So what am I going to do? I'm going to get the name, attendance, roll number and marks from the user as an argument, and I'm going to add it to the new student. Every time a new student is created in the blockchain, right, I want to notify the user, okay, whether the registration of the user happened properly or not. Yeah, so we'll go back to this, and the best place to store events is before the functions. So before the constructor, let's go and create this events, right? So there are two parts of this event. One is the declaration of the event, and another is the emitting of the event, right? So that's like declaration of a variable and assigning values to that variable. You have two parts. How do you declare an event? Is like this. You'll just say event, and here you will say or student registered, right? This is the name of the event itself that you're giving, and you will say what all details you want to give back to the user, right? So whenever you give, let's say, the name, attendance, roll number, marks, right, you want to emit those things. Okay, this is the details of the user, kind of, correct? So here you can give, let's say, string memory name, right? And you can give boolean attendance. It's not necessary to give the same variables here. You can give anything, like just like a return statement, right? So boolean attendance, then integer roll number, right? And integer marks, correct? So this is what you will give here, and of course it will not contain memory, right? Because it's an event declaration. We are not actually dynamically storing anything here. So you'll remove the memory keyword, of course, right? So I've created a new event called as student registered. String will be name, and boolean and roll number and marks is going to be emitted to the user, correct? So I want to emit this event whenever a new student registers. Okay. So let me write a function for registration of a user. Usually the fallback function is at the end. So let me create a function here. So function registered student, right? So this will be a public function, and we are going to store something. So it's not a view function, of course, right? Now register student, what we need to do is new student is equal to, or new student dot name is equal to something underscore name, right? This underscore name is going to come from the user itself. We are going to give it as arguments. So first thing is underscore name, then I'll get the attendance, right? So boolean attendance, so it will be underscore, right? And then I'll also give uint or integer, right? Integer roll number, right? And integer marks. So underscore roll number and underscore marks, right? So I'll just check if it is proper, all the variable types, name, attendance, integer and integer. Okay, pretty good, right? So underscore name, underscore attendance, underscore roll number and underscore marks. How can I store this? Underscore name. Similarly, you can also do, right, dot what is that, attendance is equal to underscore attendance, dot roll number is equal to underscore roll number, dot marks is equal to underscore marks, right? So that's how I have created a student. Now I know that the transaction executed properly without any problems and things, right? So once this is done, I'm going to emit an event to tell the user that okay, this registration is successful, right? So you will do emit. What is the name of the event that we created? It's called as student registered, right? And I want to emit some details also. What are the details? You can either say student non-name because that has been stored already, or you can take this argument and give. Anyway, both values are the same, right? So you can choose. Let me choose underscore name underscore attendance. Then I can also give this. So just for an example, I can give this and this, right? So that is how you create an event and emit an event. Okay. Remember that once you create an event, it is not necessary that only one function will be able to emit that. No, you can emit that event from various functions. That's not an issue at all. You can emit it any number of times you want, and you can emit it from various functions, various functionality. Anything can be done. Yeah. But this is the simplest example that you can look at. Now we'll see how this works and how can you see the emitted event, right? Now I'll deploy this. Okay, and here what am I gonna do is register a student, right? So I'll give a name, let's say Raghu. Okay, as I told you, it needs to be in double quotes, not mandatory, but it's always better. I will give true, roll number is 25 and marks is 89. And if I click on transact, it needs to emit an event, right? So click on transact. Once I get that the transaction is complete, I'll click on the transaction, right? So I'll click on this transaction, and if you go inside the transaction, this is the transaction, right? So once I click on this transaction, all of the other details like transaction hash, from which account and everything is gonna come, right? Which is the basics dot register student function you called, and gas price, transaction cost, everything will come displayed here, right? Now if you look at the logs, as I told you, events are stored in a log. So this is the log of this particular event that has been emitted. Now the logs say, I have emitted an event called as student registered. That's the name of the event, right? From this particular thing, which is the contract address. As you can see here, 4561F, 4561F. This contract is emitting this registered student registered event with multiple arguments. So 0, 1, 2, 3 means you can use it as an array and display that array in your front end, or you can say use it as an object also, right? More on that when we look at the front end, of course. Now the name is Raghu, attendance is true, roll number 25, marks is 89, and the length is for how many things you have emitted. That's all, right? So this is how you emit an event, and if you subscribe to this, right, you can easily wait for the smart contract to complete the registration, and you can get a notification which says yes, the student is complete, and these are the details that has been entered into the blockchain, right? So that is the events feature in the Solidity programming language. Hope you understood this events. Try it out. We'll see in the next section.